Alrighty. So, leaders, if you guys are in here, I'm half asleep, so if I mess up my words or miss something, please correct me. Other than that, I'm gonna go over my. This is a guide for you guys I made for you guys last night at 5 in the morning. And how to use the infantry units I talked about in my last guide. How to use them properly, what they're used for, etc. Just the simple things, but a lot of people don't know how to use them properly. I've seen a lot of videos currently that a lot of people need to learn about. So, long story short, let's start it off with Spear Sergeants. Spear Sergeants, most essential unit in the game. You need this unit no matter what. At least have it in your barracks max level. This is the one unit that you usually want to bring into territory wars if you don't know what to bring during territory wars. They're great for both attack and defenses. They have a multitude of purposes, such as covering entrances, holding online until reinforcements arrive, defending allies. This is the important part because I don't see many of this. Defending allies during a push or helping allies push. You can use your shield wall to cover your allies as they push, such as if there's range as you guys try to advance. There's range in the way. Put your shield wall in the way as you see the other infantry fighting to cover your allies. If your allies are scared to push using their infantry for whatever reason, if there's infantry or there's range in the way, move up your wall. Your wall is used for both advancing and defending whatever is needed to. You always want to use the line formation with the Spear Sergeants. I can't count the many times I see people using the circle formation. Circle formation is useless unless you're completely surrounded. For whatever reason, you should not be using the circle formation. You should always be using the line formation. Because if you're using the circle formation, you have a lot of pikes not focusing on the enemy. Compared to the line formation, everyone points the same direction. So, this is the only video you guys are gonna see. You guys saw this video the last time, but this is just a perfect example. Let me roll it down the volume. Right there, okay. So as I said before, these were my guys in my line guard. Watch this fella right here. He's the guy you see moving. You watch how he uses his Spear Sergeants. He uses Spear Sergeants to cover his allies. Here in a sec, you'll watch him use the Spear Sergeants to help defend his allies. Here in this right here, he's gonna move his Spear Sergeants up into the advancement to cover all this infantry trying to push up because there is range right there in the back. And then once the infantry to leave, you will try to make a push to put pressure out against the enemy, while the rest of the infantry in here tries to make a push. This is just a perfect example right here. Constant pressuring, constant pushing with the Spear Sergeants. It serves both ways, attack and defense. There was a situation last night that I'd like to use an example. My stack was attacking Koshi. We took X, and there was a lot of range in the way. In order for us to move freely to supply point to rush them, I've ordered a Spear Sergeant unit to cover our escape. That Spear Sergeant unit essentially covered our exit wave by taking all the range damage and protecting his allies. So if you use Spear Sergeants as a solo method, you're already using them wrong. They're a team-based method. Your Spear Sergeants are there to help and support your allies. They are a frontline unit. So there's that too. Any questions about Spear Sergeants before I move on to the next unit?
Nope.
Okay, sounds great. The next frontline unit on my list, Imperial Spears, which is just a Asian, well, not Asian, not trying to be racist, Eastern version of the Spear Sergeants. They use them exactly the same as Spear Sergeants. The only difference is that Spear Sergeants have longer spears and do more damage output, but the Imperial Spears are more defensive, more tanky, and have a shield bash they can eventually unlock, which is pretty sweet. Um, Other than that, just use Imperial Spears the same way. There's no really that much of a difference between Spear Sergeants other than the pikes and the damage output. Moving on. Any questions of Imperial Spears before I move on?
Yeah, I have a question. What if you have to choose between one of the two for your honor? Which one would you suggest first?
I would suggest Spear Sergeants.
Okay, thank you for answering my question.
Question: Spears, the or how about both? How much of a difference do the additional honor nodes? Do you know, like piercing damage? It's like 12%, but like, does that make a much of a difference? Is that worth putting in for? Do you know what I mean?
I think I get what you're trying to say. I think what you're trying to say is the difference in the damage value. Um, as far as goes with Imperial Spears have a decent amount of damage, but Spear Sergeant is just much greater compared to Spears. That's why I would choose Spear Sergeants over Imperial Spears. Because simply because they can do the same thing. Spear Sergeants are not as tanky as Imperial Spears, and they don't have a shield bash. But Spear Surgeons can deal a lot more damage when they're in formation or ready to attack compared to Imperial Spears. But the sweet thing about Imperial Spears is that their damage is made up by the shield bash, which is essentially just the same shield bash that not as effective as the Cannoli guards or Contenary guards, however you want to call it. But it's essentially almost the same thing, so it's pretty nice.
Hmm. Do does anyone here have maxed the nodes for spear sergeants? Do you know what I mean? The training
Oh,
or
you're
the
talking about the honor output.
additional
Yeah.
piercing damage and shield defense or
I don't.
slashing defense.
I got 3 more to go before I max that out.
Yeah, I'm max.
Are you noticing any difference there?
Tank wise, yes. They last a lot longer.
Yeah, that's what I think I need for the spear sergeants because
They're decent,
die
but
pretty
it's
easily.
not the
for
most
me.
important thing in the world.
Yeah, you having the honor
Upgrades
upgrades.
aren't that insane.
Yeah, they having the honor upgrades for them is not like you said, not the most important thing in the world. We rather you get your tier 5, and then when you're happy with your build, then you can go back and use your honor on the upgrades of units you use the most.
Yeah, I'd
Maxing
say the
them in
levels are more important.
yeah, levels and doctrines would probably be more important.
Awesome, cool, yeah.
Okay.
Any more questions before we move on? Take that as a no. Alright, very well. Moving on to pikes. Personal favorite one on the list for me. Well, second favorite one. I can't talk shit about Iron Reapers. Imperial pikes. They're great for every single unit in this list. Can be flexible for both attack and defense. So Imperial pikes are great for both attack and defense. It serves as a great push and counter push against any kind of infantry or any kind of cavalry other than itself. Because if you see two Imperial pikes marching towards themselves, they just knock each other down, and it's just a waste. Iron Reapers, obviously, and Winged Hussars pikes. If they charge in the correct distance, they will beat Imperial pikes. Other than that, those are only counters to Imperial pikes. Other than if they're not if they're not on cooldown. So, in order they can push anything, but in order for them to march against shield walls, such as we just talked about, Imperial Spears or Spear Sergeants, the shields must be interrupted slash disturbed. By what I mean about that is that if you see a shield wall and if they're in formation, you can't slow march them, expect them to be knocked over. They'll take the damage, but they won't just be knocked over. Hold on, let me show you here in this on this example right here. Give me a sec.
Put them down.
Right here, Desdale's mistake here was that he was using his Imperial. Right here, you'll see him use his Imperial pikes. And against a already established shield wall, right here will be Seer Sergeants. As you see,
You have some
they're not
artillery,
getting
grape
affected.
shots, or scorpions.
The Spear
but
Sergeants
now-
weren't getting affected at all because they were already in formation. So you want to make sure if you're going to advance against the wall that there's an entryway or they're out of formation.
Wait, I have a question. I thought, I think if the Imperial Pikes are lined up properly, where they're marching straight into the shield wall, doesn't it knock them down? Because that for that
I
left
think
side, it was
it's
kind of
about block.
slanted.
I think it's about block break.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
If three of the slow, it's just hard to set it up that way. You do want to try to, but like I think if they're in the circle formation and four things test their block, then you'll start to knock them over. But that's not. I don't think that's worth
You
relying
never
on.
want to use the circle formation. That's another thing. You never want to use the circle formation because, fuck, I don't have a screenshot. But essentially, you have about half of your pikes marching towards nothing because at the end of the formation of the circle, on the south side of it, so just imagine the circle, like cut it in half. The bottom half, that bottom half is not doing any damage at all.
Yeah, their
Really
poles
any
ain't long
damage.
enough.
Yeah, they're not long enough. Even though they have a kind of an extent, that won't be enough for you to deal real damage. So you always want to use the line formation with Imperial Pikes, no matter what you want to do. Always line formation. But they're not known to kill most units as they march, but they deal a good amount of damage, enough for your allies to come through and sweep the enemy units. It's still a great unit in my opinion. And that's it from what I see. Okay, yeah. So any questions on Imperial Pikes?
Yeah, what kind of? Go ahead.
Their shield break capabilities. Could you not set them just far enough? Because aren't their pikes actually longer?
Then
Yeah, their pikes will be longer than the spear sergeants. Yes, you're correct about that. But they, as I said, they do have difficulties breaking through a already established shield wall.
Okay, no problem. I just wanted to make sure because if we do end up setting them right, then we won't even be getting any damage unless it's from another unit. And
If you're close enough, the thing that will happen is that you won't be doing as much damage to the spear sergeants or yeah, just really the spear sergeants, but you will start hitting the units behind the spear sergeants, which will knock them over. But yeah, you have to be really
Okay.
close for that.
heard it. Thank you.
What kind of doctrines do I put on my Imperial Pikes?
I personally have a 75 what's it called? 75%. I mean, not 75%. 75 additional points into piercing damage. Piercing, armor piercing. What is it called? The armor piercing shit. Fuck, I can't think right now. I have a cooldown on them, so I can, because their cooldown that is like what 50 seconds, I believe, originally. If you put that cooldown, 10% reduction, it puts it at around 45 seconds. And those are the three ones I recommend for Imperial Pikes.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions?
I tested the doctrine and it didn't work at all. It was both 50 seconds.
Yeah, I don't think it worked for the
charge
charge.
for advance.
I don't believe it works either.
No.
Maybe you can try it again later.
That's weird because mine is at 45.
Is your spear sergeants maxed out? That could be an issue too. You'll have different stats, obviously.
But I don't think
All
that
of ours are
would
max.
matter.
Yeah.
No, we're talking about the pike guards, not spear sergeant.
Oh,
Oh,
Well, yeah, I have that on mine, and mine is reduced to 45 seconds. So it might be a glitch now because I have had that doctrine for a while. So
Yeah,
so I
I
presume
fell into that trap as well, and it didn't work for me.
so I presume that it's a recent glitch because mine is at 45. Every time I use them, they're always at 45 seconds. So it might be a recent glitch, I guess. So can't really speak for that. Because I've had my Imperial Pike since like November of last year. That's how long I've had them. But other than that, any more questions? Take that as a no. Very well, we'll move on. Fabricio pikemen, or how I like to call them, Frappuccino pikemen. They're mainly a defense-based unit, but they can be used in attacks if they're used properly. I cannot really describe how to use them. I've seen people use them. I don't have the unit personally because I'm too lazy to grab them. But their high DPS is just astonishing. It's fucking great. It just eradicates units left and right, and that's why I recommend them. The issue with them is that they're very slow. They cannot climb walls and they cannot move siege equipment, so that's a negative side of it. But their damage output does make up for that. Um, you can use these pikes essentially as both, as I said. You can use them to push. If you're in the front line, you can move them up to the front line, and they'll deal a lot of damage with anything that's in the way, which is extremely beneficial in my book. So that's why I recommend them. The only way to counter these pikes are Imperial pikes, March. Imperial pikes, they might be not as long pikes as the Fabricio pikes, but their March damage output definitely beats them. Uh, Other than that, really is just flanking them from other sides or heavy range. And I put them there, obviously, if you're in my stack, you know I don't allow most range in my stack. If you're using this unit in attack, constantly use the brace for high DPS, as I said before. Demolishes units and creates openings. Any more questions before we move on from the
Um,
Yeah,
videos?
there's a really good video that Evolos posted on how to be offensive with the Forbicio pikes. If y'all wanted to check that out in the future on how to learn how to be offensive with them, because that's how he used them. He did a really good job with it.
yeah, and I want to say like their brace is the best, but if you have to press V to attack, they'll still put out huge damage if you are using them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any more questions, comments, concerns before we move on?
No.
The the difference between them and Imperial Pikes is the Fortebraccios. They do not have a slow walk, and they're not as heavily armored, so they're more susceptible to ranged fire. Where the other guys, shorter pikes but heavier armor.
Yep. Anything
That's it.
else? Alright, we'll move on next on the list. Pike Militia, you might be seeming iffy about this on my list, but you should be bringing this unit if you have nothing else to bring into the battlefield. I bring them personally because I bring in Iron Reapers and Imperial Pikes every territory war, so they're the only really good unit I can bring in. This is my third. But considering them as being a 3-star unit, they're pretty good on their damage output and they're very useful.
2-star.
Two
So, yeah,
star.
amazing.
Fuck, I can't think. I'm absolutely sorry.
It's all good.
Uh, as I said, should be only brought if you have nothing else to bring. Can be flexible, both attack and defense, but in order to get the most out of them, I recommend you to work with a guy who's using Spear Surgeons or Imperial Spears, uh, because you can put out that extra damage output as you're trying to move up with those Spear Surgeons or Imperial Spears. You can also use them as defense when you're trying to cover the gate of your defense. Uh, you always want to use, every time you put them on formation, you always want to put them in line formation. And when they're in line formation, they're already braced. But if you press 1, they'll re-brace again and do additional damage to any units or heroes that are nearby. If you time it perfectly, as a hero tries to go through your Pike Militia will completely eradicate that hero, but you just have to time it correctly. So they're good on damage output for being a 2-star unit, but I definitely recommend them. They're not that hard to level up. Their max level is 14. They can kill most ground infantry if used properly, and they can kill cavalry if you use them properly. So, other than that, any
Can I add one
questions?
thing?
Yeah.
The way I like to use them, and I'm sure other people do this too, is like you move your pike militia like into the enemy's faces and then press 1 instead of like pressing V to attack. So like you move
Yeah.
them right in front of their face and then press 1 so they brace instantly, and it does a lot of
Correct.
damage.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I've been doing. I love doing that shit.
Yeah. So like you don't even need to use V.
you always want to use the bracing for this unit. You never want these units to fight on their own.
Mhm.
They might be doing good damage, but they're way better if they're together.
Yeah.
other
Or
than
you
that,
can
they're
press
scattered.
V so they face the enemy and then instantly hit one. So, yeah.
Yeah. Questions about the Pike Militia? Thought not. All right, moving on to more ground shock troops. Iron Reapers, and this is, you might see a big paragraph. I have a big opinion about Iron Reapers. So Iron Reapers, they are strong and tanky as fuck. We all know this, but I would not consider them as a frontline unit, and here's why. The best thing about Iron Reapers, and everyone can agree with me here, is their charge. Yes, they can fight on their own, and they can do great amounts of damage, but their charge is the main key on using the unit. The only time the Iron Reapers should become a frontline unit is after they have charged, or I did not include this in the text, if you're getting pressured on you, you have to fucking do something. Get your fucking Iron Reapers in the fight until reinforcements come. But then that Iron Reapers in my book are not a frontline unit. Iron Reapers, as much as they're super strong, they're a team-based unit. You can try to solo them, solo Iron Reapers, in specific situations, such as, for example, we all know the siege map during Territory War in Leon June. Let's think about it this way: left wall is broken. They're trying to push to supply point. One of the guys is trying to separate themselves with, let's say, iron. They have their spear sergeants. Everyone is trying to relocate to counter push the enemy on the left side wall. You see that guy with the spear sergeants who's trying to flank your allies. Go ahead and charge that fucker, because your allies should be enough to counter push them, and you're grabbing every one other person out of position, and you can get those easy kills. So that's the only time you should be able to solo them. Other than that, you should be using them as a team to provide optional heavy hitters for your allies. Meaning that this unit, in my book, will be a second line unit, as I said. Their main purpose is their charge. As much as they're tanky and strong, you can't have them in the front line at all. You don't want to risk that. You always want to use your charge, and that's what's gonna get you a bunch of those kills. But other than that, they're great. They're fucking strong. They're tanky. They're effective both defenses and attacks. So, along with Iron Reapers, any questions about Iron Reapers?
Stay away from muskets.
Yes, that is true. Muskets are the number one counter to Iron Reapers. I'll mention the second counter here in a sec. But if Golden Cav, Monastic Knights can charge Iron Reapers, they'll deal pretty decent amount of damage, but they won't kill the Iron Reapers if they're in full health. Which is the sweet thing about Iron Reapers, but muskets, that's a different story. You want to be careful around muskets. But any more questions? Take that as a no. Okay. Condemnatory guards, I say that these guys are the best sword, shield, and units currently in the game. They're very low health base, but their shield bash causes chaos for the enemy ranks. For example, you want to use these guys if you're trying to push up to an objective, try to take supply point, charge in, shield bash. You never want to use this unit against an established wall. I've seen this too many times. This isn't a unit that you direct charge towards a already established shield wall or even infantry defense or attacking the infantry. You never want to charge them unless you're desperate, which that's a different story. This is a more of a flanking unit or a second line unit, kind of like the Iron Reapers. That's how you want to use them. As I said, they're low health base, so that makes them very squishy. But their shield bash causes chaos. Great rushing units, using to use flanks, as I've said before. My favorite thing, personally, about Condi guards is that they're a great counter to Iron Reapers. And how you want to use them is that you want to make sure that if you see an Iron Reaper unit, if they have already charged, you want to charge at that Iron Reaper unit and use your shield bash, because the shield bash in the Condi guards is much faster than the rate attack of Iron Reapers. Meaning that as long as you have a maul or are supported by allies, you can take out that unit of Iron Reapers easily with the Condi guards. because that shield bash will interrupt the Iron Reapers from actually doing their initial damage, and just a great way to use them. That's my favorite way to use Condi guards. But other than that, I think they're the best shield and sword unit currently in the game. So any questions about the Condi guards?
Question.
Yes.
I have squires unlocked. What's your take on them?
They're
Just replace them with the condottieri guards, honestly.
Yeah, but the thing with squires is that they're tanky, and well, wait, no, I think no, yeah, they're tanky. They're quite a bit tanky, and they have a good charge value, but they're not a unit that lasts for a while, and that doesn't cause havoc against the enemy ranks. They're not even on my list in here, to be honest with you. So I don't like squires personally.
And they also don't have the two abilities. They don't really stand up on their own in normal melee. Like, yeah, they get the bonus damage after a charge, but it's
Yeah,
8 seconds
they're no
where
more
they're
melee.
viable, and then after that, you can't do anything with them. You have to
Gotcha.
run away. You take big damages. They're not really worth ranking up. And the confetti are what, an extra 15 leadership, I think.
No,
Something like that.
extra 5 leadership.
Yeah. Well,
And cost
and then
almost
this
half
season.
the kit price.
and they can do infinitely better. Like squires, you're not denting Iron Reapers, not even denting. They don't have a chance.
Any more questions,
I mean,
comments?
Frigate Squires, the confetti guards can kill men at arms without taking any casualties.
Yeah.
So that should pretty much answer your question.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Any more questions before we move on?
Nope.
All right, so this is a new unit on my list, Testrix. So someone was talking to me about Testrix and asked me about their opinion. My old guys in my last house said that Testrix wasn't really worth it until you max him out, but I was thinking that it's kind of fair only having 3 shield and sword units on your setup. But the thing about Testrix is that they're a heavy hitter unit. Only on their charge value though. So you want to use these guys essentially as how you will use Iron Reapers in their charge. They're a secondary wave unit that you will try to get in there to try to create openings, try to break a shield wall, try to bring an infantry formation, etc. But once you get them in there, you want to pull them out as soon as you can, unless you haven't maxed out, because their standard melee attacks is actually shit until you get them to max level. In max level, you can actually start calling their standard melee attacks as quote unquote decent, but that's a risk that you have to decide on yourself depending on the situation. If you feel comfortable leaving them in there and continue fighting, that's on you, but I will recommend to pull them out after their charge is complete. So other than that, they're pretty nice unit in my opinion. Not a unit I personally use, but it definitely creates openings and an alternate way to go from using Iron Reapers. So much cheaper too. Any questions about test rigs? And that was quick.
They're my personal favorite unit. I mean, I like the
Same.
charge sticks. So,
But
and they're,
you do need to remember to conserve their charge. You don't when you need to use the charge, you have to use the charge, but don't waste it. Like, because they don't operate like prefectures and confettis where they have 2 different abilities, you can't just blow your entire load on some irrelevant unit. If it's a group of guns, just go walk up to them, lose one, but don't waste your charge.
Yep.
yeah, that's something I had to learn the hard way because it's a 60-second cooldown, and without their charge, they're really mediocre.
Same
Once
thing.
again, Evlo has a good video on how to use them properly. I learned a lot watching this video about the Tesseract.
Same thing goes to Iron Reapers. You want to use their charges effectively. You don't want to charge Iron Reapers to remaining five remaining Spirit Sergeant units after they've been eradicated. You want to use them effectively. You want to use them to just as Testrix and Iron Reapers in their charge. You want to use those to create openings or help your allies push. That's the only reason you should be using their charges. Any questions? Take that as no. Moving on to the final unit. You might have your opinions, but I will only bring prefect guards if I'm desperate or don't have any idea what else to bring, and if I don't want to bring in pike militia, I'll bring this unit. I see prefect guards. The best way they're used in territory war is just scale walls, and that's it, in my opinion. They have a decent charge. Uh, they have decent amount of health. But the thing with them is that their attack value doesn't really make up compared to like the shield bash that what's called cannoli guards have. The cannoli guards, as I said before, they create havoc and chaos. Unlike the prefect guards you can charge them, cause a little bit of chaos, but it's not too much. The only really nice thing about prefect guards is that they're number 2 attack when you press 2 when you use them. That essentially doubles their damage and engagements and their slashing damage for a short period of time. It's very nice if you use them effectively. But other than that, their charge is okay, health is okay. They're overall an okay unit. Not a unit I'll bring to every territory war. Uh, as I said before, they're only used in territory wars to climb up ladders to try to, you know, tactics. I don't want. I shouldn't explain myself why you shouldn't climb up ladders. But other than that, that's prefect guards. Any questions about prefect guards?
Mm-mm. In my opinion, the spaghetti guards are way better, and it's not worth the honor to unlock them because in all of season 2, I loved them. They were my favorite unit, and I honor maxed them, and I regret it now. So take that as a word of caution.
Yeah. Any units that I did not mention in this list that you guys want to talk about?
I have a quick question for new guys in Blood Wolf that are not sure or don't have the leadership on what to bring if they don't have some of these higher tier units. What will be good substitute units for them?
Ooh, that's a good question. So
Pike militia
yeah, I was about
Pike
to say.
militia, iron cap
and
swordsman,
confetti guards.
confetti guards. All the new seasonal units, but the higher tier ones maybe not as much.
Yeah, so the thing with let's go down the list first. Iron Cap Swordsmen. They're essentially they're gonna be your charging unit. They're not known for doing a good amount of damage when they're engaging, but their charge. I haven't used them in a while. I got rid of them because I have better units now. But last time I used them, their charge was good enough to kill a hero in itself. Against other units, it depends. You gotta use them effectively. But their charge in Iron Cap Swords, it's pretty great. It's for low tier units. Not the best, I would say, but it's pretty great and an alternative for a charging unit. We were one.
Well,
Go ahead.
the best part about them is with the low cost honor upgrades, you can get the charge every I think it's 6 or 7 seconds. So you can just.
It's more
you
like 8 or 10 seconds, but still, you can charge them,
Oh, yeah.
pull them back, and they're ready for the
It's
next
like
go.
the instant you click it, so like by the time your unit reaches the enemy, it's like 5 seconds.
Yeah, if you're on the flank with them and there's just group of archer after group, you can just keep going and going and going all day long and just destroy all of them. Now, they're not the greatest in the heads-up battle, but if you attack a unit from behind where they're exposed and you're critting, they'll do good damage. But you can always charge 2, and then you can also charge away if you need to.
They're a good disposable flank unit.
Mm-hmm. And they're super low leadership for having. The reason why Confetti and Prefecture are good is because they have 2 abilities. Because their charge is almost always off a cooldown, they essentially always have an ability up that you can use to either do more damage or get away. So it just operates in a similar fashion at a lower leadership, lower damage, obviously, but they're still very good, in my opinion, at least. I don't know about a lot of the other low tier units. I've tried out some of the lower tier guns, but they're not maxed, so I don't want to give my opinion on them yet. And again, we're not huge in the range for TWs. So as far as the other low tier melee units, I don't know much. I don't think any of them are very good.
What about rattan units? Anything worth anything besides the rangers? I know, but
That's
melee units.
the thing with Rattan units is that the only one that I would consider personally for Rattan units will be the crossbow ones. So what are they called? The
Marksman?
marksman.
Rangers.
The marksman
Oh.
rangers, and the reasons being that is that the way that you want to use them is that you want to go through with their their fire line. You don't want to go through their poison line. You want to go through their fire line. And since if you're a low player unit, low level unit playing against other low level units, you're gonna get a bunch of kills with this because that fire output, it really helps
It's
against
crazy.
yeah, it's not good against like medium armor to high level, but it's
Yeah, high armor it does. Fire does nothing, right?
yeah, high armor doesn't do nothing. Medium armor is okay, but not, I wouldn't say fantastic, but it's something. But it's a good way to get a good amount of kills with range, in my opinion, for low level players. Uh, Other than that, any other range unit that I recommend is fire archers. I recommend fire archers for new players. Their fire, as I said, is comparable to the marksman one. I think they do more damage. I think last time I checked, I might be mistaken by that. Uh, it was a musket unit after before the full
You got,
years.
you got Dements, Arbor.
Demons, yeah.
The
I
men's
think so.
spearmen are one of my
Those are
favorites.
the men's arquebusiers, in my opinion, aren't good at all.
I haven't maxed mine, so I have no clue.
But what like he was saying earlier, this house definitely discourages range play. We don't see that. I mean, honestly, get your TW lineup set and then go back and get some of your fun units, right? That's what most of us did, and we kind of hope you guys follow in the same path. It just makes your progression a lot easier because then you don't have to waste honor and time with a suboptimal unit and feeling worthless in TWs.
Yeah.
Thank you, I appreciate it because I think that was some of the issues where we were asking them to bring certain units. Some of them they had, some of them they were only like levels 5 through 6. At that point, we just told them just bring your best units, really.
I can make you guys a list of alternates for low levels. I can do that. Kind of have one that I made back in the day, but much of it needs to be updated, so I can work on that.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah, but other than that, any more questions, comments, concerns?
Yeah, this Cat Wolf. I got two questions. So last night we were holding, and it's kind of mid range, and so my group was trying to hold the gate. So I put spear sergeants on each side, Imperial pikes, Fort of Brachio, and then we had, I think, Rangers, or we could put Reapers as the floater unit. Where can I strengthen up that box to hold the gate?
I think it was great enough already. The Fabricio pikemen are supposed to deal the damage right there and damage output. The only thing that the Spirit Surgeons serve as in that situation will be covering the Fabricio pikemen and dealing damage to those units that go through the Fabricio pikemen. That's it was perfect right there. That's how I think everyone should be playing right now in their defense games. Having those Fabricio pikemen or even your Imperial pikes, that's still good enough to hold the wall because they don't usually do a good push in the entrance anymore. But
Right.
having those Fabricio pikemen, it's already making you a killbacks right there.
Okay. And then the second question, if you're going, is if you've got the Reapers and you're working to max them up, what do y'all think as far as just a next unit to help out? Rangers, monastic. What's your thoughts? Or some other unit?
Yeah, that's a question for me.
Oh, so you're asking if what units to grab after Iron Reapers? That's what you're asking.
Yep.
Essentially grab any other units. So, for example, grab any other unit that you haven't gotten yet from Heroic Era. I wouldn't. If you're infantry, I wouldn't aim for a cavalry. I will aim for those other infantry units I still haven't gotten yet. So let's say, for example, I haven't gotten my Imperial Shield walls. And they're pretty good and will bring an interesting mix to the battlefield. I can unlock those and level those up next. Essentially, don't try to go into caveat until you want to or you're needed to. In my book.
Okay, what besides
Cool,
Imperial
thanks.
Shields?
If you got spear sergeants, Imperial shields, slow walkers, and Iron Reapers, then you could start looking into horses. Monastics are an easy grab. They're pretty good. They're pretty versatile in all of the battles, even the town ones, because they are kind of tanky. Rattan Rangers are pretty good in the field battles. Don't waste your time on cataphracts. For now, at least, because they just don't operate good anymore. And then there's the Hussars. I believe Hussars kind of got a little bit of a. They operate a little bit better than they did at the beginning of the season. I think they got some sort of ninja patch or something. But or even your fun unit. Once you're kind of set for TWs, you can start messing around with, I don't know, with whatever you want. But
And Cav costs a lot of money, guys. Just so you know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, very hard to maintain if you're just, let's say you're level 300 and you finally got your Iron Reapers. You're going to be wasting a lot of money grabbing those Iron Reapers and leveling up those Iron Reapers, so you might want to reconsider. So.
And if you are leveling them up, make sure you get those XP tokens.
Rangers are actually pretty cheap for a golden cav.
Oh,
so
yes, actually, they actually are free.
7K for
By
the
comparison.
kit, and then 5K
Yeah.
of course for the purple horse.
Also, they're the easiest cab to get if you aren't like near the others.
Hey, I'm about to hit a Crusaders of Blood by Pecora. He has artillery and serfs.
I'm coming.
Where is it?
Pecora.
I'm
I'll get
dropping
him.
off my wagon.
Okay, so any more questions? Comments, concerns?
Thank you for taking the time to do this.
Yeah, thank you again. We appreciate it.
Yeah, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, pretty helpful.
Alright, so who's gonna pay me?
That is Big
This is
Daddy
your
Rock.
volunteer work.
I think that's how it
Who
is.
said you could have 3 feasts?
Yeah.
These count as community service hours, don't they?
I'm pretty sure.